And so one of the things that would be horrible is if you have to make that decision for somebody's life and you don't know what their intentions were, right?
They may want you dead.
Yeah. Or they, yeah.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It's time for more Law Light, brought to you, as always, by Foreman, Watson, Holtree, FWHlegal.com. It is kind of warm outside. It's better than it has been. No ice, no snow, no icy steps to fall down.
No.
PJ appears to be healing and mending quite well.
You should see the bruise.
I don't want to see the bruise. I've seen pictures of the bruise on your derriere.
Yes, the picture I showed you, though, pales in comparison to what it is now.
Oh, well.
It's
you
bad.
You have a hematoma.
I do. When Leslie looked at it, she was like, oh, my God, what if you have a blood clot? And I thought, oh, great.
After this is over, in fact, I'm working on preparing for another trial, as you know.
Yep.
Among many injuries that my client suffered, he suffered, and I don't know the correct, but it was a big hematoma that had to be lanced open and drained, because it got actually hard under the skin and it would have killed the skin if they didn't release that blood. And so then they had to put a wound vac on it for like 3 weeks, and he had to pull that wound vac around with him. So when it's over, I'll show you a picture of it. And
I can't wait. I've seen the wound vac situation before, where they've had to open somebody up and it sucks the fluid build-up out.
This is forget the name of it. It's some kind of formation.
I think the formation is called "Thanks for that tidbit of information," so I can be worried about it for the rest of the day.
It's the best I can do for you.
Now, there's still kind of a lump under the skin. It's not as pronounced as it was. But I'm assuming you're saying that the hematoma gets hard.
Right, it gets, and then they have to get that out. The way I understand it is it can do damage that can be like necrotizing to where the skin starts to,
right,
because there's no blood supply to it.
I can say the skin at that site is very almost numb. Is that a bad sign?
I don't know. I'm not the doctor. I'm just telling you they cut this guy about 4 inches and opened it up.
Right,
and then after they opened it up and evacuated it, then they put the wound vac on there to get it all out.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's black. I've got the devil in my cheek. It's bad.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll show you the pictures.
I'll talk to Katie.
Yeah, talk to Katie about it.
I'll see what she thinks.
Go to your doctor.
She'll say, don't come to me, go to your doctor.
What else has been going on with you over there other than having a big black butt?
Did a couple date nights this past weekend, which was nice, because I didn't have the kiddos. Actually, it was kind of nice. COVID forced me to have them for about 10 days, which, I get them every other day and then every other weekend.
Them straight through.
Yeah, so I had them for 10 days, and it was probably driving them crazy because there's not as much to do at my house as there is at their mom's. Now, I'm working on rectifying that.
Right.
But for them, it's either their phones or we find something to watch on TV. Let me say this.
Say it.
I'm
letting you.
Thank you. When the divorce happened, I had to get rid of a majority of the extras, because going from 2 incomes down to 1, and admittedly, and I'm not afraid to be emasculated, she made more money than me. That's how it always was. The bulk of the finances did come from Trina. So when we split and I stayed in the house, I had to get rid of all the extras. So I got rid of internet, I got rid of streaming, all the streaming services, which we had like 8 of them. I went down to the basics, which is TV, Blu-ray player, and like the 4,000 movies I own. So I'm not low on entertainment, but of course the boys ended up taking their systems and their TVs over to their mom's house because she still had internet. That didn't leave them with much to do at my house. And at first I thought I felt bad for them, and I thought it was kind of a negative thing. But here's what I've realized by getting rid of all that extra stuff. What it has done is it has literally forced them to have to spend time with me.
Right.
So now they can't just go in there. I mean, they can just go in their room and get on their phone or whatever. But like the one thing that it's done, especially for Connor, like he doesn't want to just sit in his room and be on his phone. He'll come in there and he'll be like, let's watch a movie that I've never seen together, you know? And Logan will do the same thing. So I'll say, okay, we'll go into the movie room, pick out a few things that you've been wanting to see. Obviously there's limitations because there's some things that they want to see that I'm not going to let them. What has happened is, and I think this is a lack of what a lot of kids are getting nowadays. It's like when we grew up, you get culture from books and television and movies.
Right.
And a lot of kids are lacking that nowadays, I feel, because not as many kids are reading, not as many kids are watching. Yeah. Not as many kids are watching television or watching movies. I mean, unless it's like a Marvel movie, which there's nothing wrong with that because I'm a huge Marvel movie fan. But all these movies that we grew up on that now we look back on fondly, we have that nostalgia for. My kids and their friends don't have that because they're all about YouTubers and they want to sit around and they want to watch people that you've never heard of with ridiculous names play video games.
That's stupid. Don't get me started on this.
I think about their generation. I'm like, what are they going to talk about when they're in their 30s? Are they going to be like, man, remember Ninja when he played Among Us? Remember how much fun that was to sit around and watch him play this game, this app-based phone game for 4 to 8 hours a day? How much fun is that going to be to talk about?
Doesn't it ultimately fall upon us? I mean, isn't it our responsibility to make sure that they have something more than that? I mean,
I can say that I did some of that before they had the games. Now, I don't play games as much as I used to, but we did make a point to where like I would play games with the boys. So it was like they're not just playing with some stranger from Prussia. I don't even know if Prussia's still around.
Well, there's the King of Prussia Mall in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, so it must be a thing still.
No, King of Prussia is it's actually in Philadelphia.
Right. Okay.
You know, one of the things, though, that you said there that caught my attention, when you got rid of internet, then they could not do their gaming because, you know, therein is the entire problem with the world. Because my gaming, when I was a kid, was plug it into your TV. The biggest thing was, did you have the right adapter to make it show on your TV screen? Remember?
Yeah, you had to have that RCA adapter.
Yeah, and so, you know, you hooked it into your TV, you threw a disc in, or a cartridge at first, a cartridge into your gaming, and you played. And then it became a disc. And then it became like you had to put the disc onto, you had to load.
And sometimes the games were so big, it would be like 2 or 3 discs.
Right. Exactly.
But the key is the entire game is on those discs or on that cartridge.
You're exactly right. And you did not have to have the internet to play.
No.
That's the problem, is that all of our gaming is internet now. I've just, you know, I'm just...
Well, and the other thing, too, is if you wanted to have a tournament with your friends, you went to a friend's house. Everybody congregated in one spot. Because I can remember growing up, we had Mortal Kombat tournaments, we had Twisted Metal tournaments, we would have Street Fighter tournaments. You're not on the cloud with 80 strangers all around the world
talking through your your headphones, right?
You know, and you don't, and you're not even sure if one of them is actually like a 40-year-old pervert.
No, so I know it's terrible.
You know who you're playing with, and you're right there. So it's like, you know, all the razzing and everything, and you're building relationships,
and you're eating
that are,
you know,
tangible right in front of you.
Having snacks and drinking too much caffeine.
Absolutely,
it's yeah. I mean, mine wasn't Mortal Kombat and Metal Slayer or whatever yours.
Cubert, you were Cubert.
No, Pong. No,
even Cubert's too advanced.
NCAA, mine was NCAA football or basketball, you know.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Madden 1.
Yeah, Madden 1. I remember one time when I was just newly married, Kate was a baby, and I started playing a game, and she fell asleep on my chest while I was playing, and it was like I was doing better than I had ever done in this game.
Right.
I kept getting more and more excited, but I couldn't move. All I could do is she was asleep. I was like, it was miserable, man. It was terrible. But one thing that I've wanted to talk about for a while on the podcast, and we just haven't gotten around to it. It's something that the firm does, and it's very important. We really haven't had a podcast about it, and since today has to be a little abbreviated because of scheduling, thought would be a good day to do it. One of our attorneys, Holly Lindsay, who we've had on here a couple of times, she is the managing partner in the Ohio County office. She works a lot in the Bowling Green office as well with Bart Darrell.
Right.
Holly's practice is kind of divided into thirds. She does personal injury work and litigation with me. She does family law, and the other third of her practice is estate planning and probate work. So when estate planning is wills, trusts, and things like that, powers of attorneys to get your matters in line.
Right.
And then when you do pass on, then that's called probate work, okay? And probate means basically getting your papers that you prepared before your death into the court so that your wishes can be carried out and finalizing your estate. So Holly does those three things, and she does her favorite of that is estate planning and the probate work. She really likes that. We recently tried a case last year that involved a fairly wealthy person who had remarried, and in the last minutes, literally before the wedding, had a prenuptial agreement. If people don't know, is basically a contract that says in the event of my death or in the event of our divorce, this is how things are going to be divided. And they're a lot more common for second marriages because you're coming into it with some, wealth or with,
right.
expectations with kids and things.
We got to
like
watch
that.
out for those gold diggers.
Right. Yeah. So exactly. So
I have no problem with that, by the way. Sorry.
There was a question with whether or not that prenuptial agreement was enforceable. And it ended up being a very difficult case. We tried it for several days, took it up to the Court of Appeals. What I witnessed in that case was that there was a lot of heartache, a lot of hurt feelings because the second spouse was pitted against the kids from prior marriage and the kids of the person that had passed. Advice that was given by a very good lawyer here in town was basically not heeded to, followed. This person's affairs were not in order. There was a lot of ambiguities as to what the intentions of that person was upon their death. When I sat and saw how, number one, how a great part of this person's estate is paid to lawyers for fighting about what the intentions of this person were. I can tell you that in this case, that because of the number of attorneys that had to be involved, there's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees.
Oh, wow.
Legal fees, which, if not fought over, would have gone to all the individuals anyway. One of the things that I think is important for people that listen to our podcast, no matter what the size of your estate is, all right, you owe it to either your spouse or your children or both, or if there's charities or certain things that mean a lot to you, that before you pass away, you need to have the right instruments in place to make it clear what your intentions were. The last thing that I want going on when I pass away, I don't want my kids fighting Missy. I don't want Missy fighting my kids.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to wonder, well, what were Dad's intentions? Because I want my passing to be something that not that they're joyful about, but I want to take away as much stress in that I can. You know what I'm saying? I think all too often what happens is people get busy doing a will, doing a trust, doing a power of attorney, a living will, all those things fall along the wayside and they don't get it done. Number one, unless you have an extraordinary amount of money or a unique complex thing, it does not cost that much to get it planned out. Okay?
Yeah.
Because for a majority of people, a will, a power of attorney, a living will, that's all you need. Even if you have modest income, not a big estate, maybe a trust. If you have some life insurance, you need to know what to do with that and those kinds of things. But it's not that complicated. Literally for anywhere from a few $100s up to maybe a couple $1,000s, you can get all this figured out. Knowing that all my kids have to do is take this instrument or this package over to the court and put it in the court, and then that I have the people set up to basically administrate it, that means a lot to me. I don't worry about it. I've just have never come on here and really said, hey, do this. And I'm not doing it. I mean, yeah, we're happy to do it at Foreman Watson Holtree. Holly's super. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it more as a public service announcement, like get your affairs in order, because I have a fairly good friend of mine he was a friend of mine in college. He's terminally ill. I'm helping him get some things lined out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But we never know. I mean, you don't have to be terminally ill to know that you're going to be passing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Unfortunately, we put ourselves in these little 40 to 50 mile per hour missiles every day that if they hit something that's sitting still can be an instantaneous death, right? You do not know. You just don't.
Yeah.
And not to be grim, but hey, if death is a reality, then plan for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a car. I mean, your own body could give out on you.
That's right. That's
So
right. You could have a hematoma on your, that.
Yeah. Thanks.
I just wanted to point this out, and if we can help, just give us a call.
Well, first of all, I want to say that Holly did my last will. We had the wills redone because of Connor. Because originally we had our wills, then we had Logan. We redid them to incorporate Logan. Then we had Connor, redid them again. Holly did it, and then they got stolen in the Great Break-In. And I actually, you've reminded me that I need to get with Holly so I can get my will redone. Well, plus also now that I'm divorced, that's another, so that changes as well. It does. But what's funny is how many people I've talked to, and you hit the nail on the head a second ago, is the whole death thing. Most of us won't experience death unless it's third party for ourselves until it's happening, right? So when you're thinking about death, you normally are like, well, that's not anything that's going to happen to me anytime soon. It's so far away, like you can't fathom, I guess, unless you're like 80 or 90, then you start thinking about it a little bit more. But when you're our age, it's like you don't really think about it as much. Or if it is, it's not that big of a reality. But the people I've talked to, one of their reasons for not wanting to do a will is that stigma that they feel as if they do a will, that somehow solidifies the deal that it's going to happen like tomorrow.
Yeah, that's so far from the truth.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because I can say the first time I had my will done, I was 21, and now I'm 39. Is it weird to look at a piece of paper where it says the last will and testament of Perry Starks Jr.? Yes, it is a bizarre feeling, but I'm still here.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've had multiple variations of said will over the years. It didn't kill me. So stop worrying about death coming at you just because you get this will done. And hey, maybe you will die tomorrow after you do the will. But like you said, at least you have your affairs in order to some degree. Mm-hmm. Going back to that case you were talking about, though, they had something in place, but it just wasn't lined out as well as it should have been.
The instrument, because it was done in a rush.
Oh, okay.
And because it was presented at the last moment, then the instrument was not enforceable.
Gotcha.
And the instrument would have carried out what we believe to be his intent, but there were things that had to be done with the instrument to make it appropriate that were not done.
Okay. So it got thrown out,
yes.
And then it was as if there was nothing.
Then it went basically, okay, therefore there's no will, and therefore the money goes in accordance with the statute, which was totally different than what would have happened if the prenuptial agreement was enforced.
Right.
The prenuptial agreement essentially left one person with very little and other people with a very lot. But if the prenuptial agreement was not enforceable, then the person that was getting very little would get a whole lot, and the people that were going to get a lot would take a little. So the prenuptial agreement was pivotal, and it got thrown out because it was not proper. Number one, it wasn't proper because the person that it was presented to, it was given to them minutes before a wedding. Number two is because there were certain things that had to be a part of that prenuptial that would have had to take place ahead of time that never took place.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, and we litigated it. We did the best we could based upon current law. I think there's going to be some changes in the law. It was just one example. Now, the other thing that I want to mention before we conclude is this. That there's also a part of estate planning that doesn't have to do with your things, okay? And it's basically what to do with you. One of the worst things you can do is put the pressure upon somebody of whether or not to sustain your life when you are in a situation where you're totally dependent on certain devices or nutrition and things like that.
Right.
And so one of the things that would be horrible is if you have to make that decision for somebody's life and you don't know what their intentions were, right?
They may want you dead.
Or well, one of the things that's a part of estate planning is what's called a living will. It's what your will is, like what do you want if you are in the situation where you are being kept alive by various things? What do you want done? And you can put on that paper, this is what I want done. So don't sweat it. Whoever I leave is my surrogate to make this decision. You don't have to make the decision. I'm making it while I'm clear-minded, while I'm thoughtful. This is what I want done. You're okay to leave me on nutrition, and you're okay to leave me on fluids, but I only want to be on life support for 5 days. And if I'm on life support for 5 days, I'm not, then I'm going to be done. Okay. You know, you can make those choices and make it easy, because if you don't have that direction, and then if, let's say my father doesn't have a living will, and I'm sitting there in the human side of me wants to think my dad will pull through, my dad will make it, my dad is going to be, but there's no brain function, or there's no, in my dad, if he would have known he was going to be in that situation, would want to just go on. But he never told anybody that, right? Now I'm stuck with that decision. I'm the only child, and I'm stuck with that decision of what to do with my father. If my father has a living will, I can say, look, I'm carrying out what he wanted.
Right.
I'm doing what he told me to do, you know? And so I know I'm, you know, to some extent, blessing him by doing what he wanted me to do with him, you know?
Right.
And that's a part of estate planning, is a living will. And so that's something else that's done. The last element of estate planning is power of attorney. There are times when you are incapacitated and you need something signed. You need something done, whether it's a transaction, whether it's a bill being paid, whether it's a depositing of a check and things like that. People don't think about that, right? And they're like, well, what happens if you need somebody to sign something for you and you are halfway across the country and that something is sitting in your hometown and you need it done? A power of attorney gives someone various powers, and people think, well, I don't want somebody can just sign anything for me. What's beautiful about power of attorneys is that you can limit them. You can limit them to say, I'm giving you the power to sign my name to utility bills. I'm giving you power to make deposits into one account. So you can speak with your attorney, and you can narrow a power of attorney to where somebody can sign your name and transact your business in a limited form. There's limited powers of attorney. There's durable powers of attorney. Durable power of attorney say they're going to continue on even if you're under a disability. So if you are involved in a wreck and you've lost your mental capacities for 20, 30 days, a power of attorney will allow someone to, guess what? A lot of times, PJ, people are involved in wrecks and they're sitting over in the hospital and they are out of it. Okay? They are totally out of it.
Yeah.
Their family's needing to hire a lawyer, but they can't, because that person is the only person that can hire themselves a lawyer, because they've never given somebody the power of attorney. So what we have to do in that situation is we have to file something with the court. We have to get a guardian. A power of attorney is something that needs to be considered as a part of your estate plan.
Right. So if you don't have a power of attorney and something needs to be signed, who makes those decisions while you're incapacitated?
You have to go to the court. You have to file a petition to have somebody appointed an emergency guardian and emergency guardian or fiduciary. Court has to see the medical evidence, has to hear everything, and then make a decision. Right. As you know how quickly things move through court. That could take 2 or 3 weeks to get done.
Yeah. So if it's a life-saving decision that needs to be made for you and you're incapacitated and can't make that decision, you're probably dead.
Something's happened, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, not to be a gloom and doom, this is something to encourage people. Really, I want to encourage people to have the confidence to go talk to a lawyer. Number one, it's not that expensive of a process. It can be done fairly quickly. We've never ever discussed this out of so many, and it's a part of what we do here at Foreman Watson Holtree, and we do it well. Holly's tremendous at it. We use this to educate. We use this to give people information.
Right.
And so today we've designated it as Get Your Will Done Day. Okay?
That's right. Get your will done and start having Mortal Kombat tournaments or Madden 1 tournaments.
Don't rely on the internet for gaming.
No.
There you go.
No. Well, the companies don't really leave you much choice nowadays.
I know. It's sad.
That's why you got to get a classic gaming system.
And that's why you need Foreman Watson Holtree. FWH Legal is your estate planning headquarter. Until next time, this has been Law Light.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of 2 mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!